Well, hello. Looks like we had a couple of folks dial in early on our inbound participant line. Thanks so much for being on for this live virtual forum with the 7th Congressional District of New Jersey. We'll be joined in a moment here by your Congressman, Tom Malinowski. This is going to be your opportunity to ask questions, share concerns, and get updates on the latest from Congress. Again, we'll have Congressman Malinowski on the line in just a minute. Hang tight, and I'll tell you how you can participate in this live virtual forum today. Again, hello to those of you just joining us. Welcome to this telephone town hall with Congressman Tom Malinowski. This call is an opportunity for residents of the 7th Congressional District of New Jersey to ask questions, share their concerns, and get updates on the latest from Congress. To submit a question for our live Q&A today with your congressman, just press 0 on your phone to speak to an operator. Once you get connected with an operator, they'll take down some notes and put you in the queue to ask your question live. Then in a few minutes, we'll start taking those questions live and asking Representative Malinowski to answer. First, though, I will be asking the congressman to provide you with updates from D.C. So as you're listening to those updates, be thinking about questions you might have, and then press 0 as soon as you're ready to submit that question to an operator for Q&A. You're welcome to ask your question live, but if you prefer not to go live and you'd prefer to have me read your question over the air instead, I'm happy to do that. Just let your operator know that if that's your preference after you press 0 and you connect to an operator to give them your question. Be sure to let them know if you want me to read your question instead of bringing you live. Of course, we prefer to hear from you live. That's an opportunity everybody has on this forum tonight. And again, we have Congressman Malinowski here to answer your questions live. Now, we will spend most of our time on this live forum answering your questions. So again, press 0 at any time to submit a question for Q&A. We also want to keep you updated moving forward. You can stay up to date on the latest from Representative Malinowski's office by receiving information on upcoming events, federal programs, and more. You can sign up for the office's e-newsletter by pressing 7 on this live call or by visiting malinowski.house.gov/contact/newsletter-subscribe. So again, you can sign up for Representative Malinowski's e-newsletter, be kept updated on the issues that affect you in the 7th Congressional by either pressing 7 on this live forum here or by visiting malinowski.house.gov/contact/newsletter-subscribe. And I'll repeat that information at the halfway mark of our forum if you didn't get a chance to write it down here. Additionally, we can assist with accessing public benefits, such as Social Security and Medicare, passports and visas, immigration and naturalization services, veterans benefits, or in resolving issues with federal agencies such as the IRS or FEMA, as well as much more. So if you need assistance from Congressman Malinowski's office, you can visit malinowski.house.gov/casework. So again, if you're looking for assistance, you need casework assistance with the Congressman's office, you can submit that at malinowski.house.gov/casework. And again, covers a wide range of services, Social Security and Medicare, passports and visas, immigration and naturalization services, veterans benefits, or resolving issues with federal agencies like the IRS or FEMA. Again, malinowski.house.gov/casework if you need assistance from the Congressman's office. One more mention here before we go to the Congressman live. If you would like to be kept updated via social media, you can follow the Congressman on Facebook at Rep. Malinowski and on Twitter at Rep. Malinowski. You can follow him on Instagram at Rep. Tom Malinowski, and you can subscribe to Rep. Tom Malinowski on YouTube. Again, we'll repeat all of this at the halfway mark of our forum in just a minute here. One more mention, though, 0 to submit a question for Q&A. We're already getting lots of questions in, so thanks for that. You can either ask your question live or you can let your operator know you want me to read it over the air instead, and you can press 7 to get email updates from your congressman. Let's go ahead and get started. It's my pleasure to kick off this live virtual forum by turning it over to your representative in the 7th Congressional District of New Jersey, Tom Malinowski. Please go ahead, Congressman.
Thanks so much, everybody. Thanks for joining this evening for our latest in a long and continuing series of public town hall meetings, something I am committed to doing as my first responsibility as your representative in Congress. I'm driving home from Washington from a very busy legislative week to spend the weekend back home in New Jersey. I pulled over and hope to spend the next hour talking with you about what we're doing and what you think we should be doing in Washington to serve New Jersey. I'll start by saying that I know this is, it sometimes seems like our politics are extremely divided and angry right now. There are good reasons for that anxiety, but I do believe that most of us agree on the big issues. I think most of us cherish freedom and community. We want our democracy to work in America. We want to settle our political differences by voting and not by violence. And in light of that, I hope everybody will be watching the January 6th committee hearing this evening, the last in this series of hearings. I hope you agree with me that this is a good example of Democrats and Republicans coming together to repair what's wrong with our democracy. I hope you will also follow our bipartisan work in Congress to pass legislation to make sure that our democracy is secure going forward from what happened on January 6th, that no leader in this country of either party can ever again exploit any loopholes in our laws to seize or cling to power when they've lost an election. There's been very good progress made in the U.S. Senate that I strongly support on reforms to our Electoral Count Act and other legal standards that will ensure, I hope, that something like that never happens again. I'll say that I've always thought that the best antidote to the anger and division is government delivering for people. It's Congress doing its job on the issues that voters care about. And right now, the big issue for most people I talk to is the economy. On the one hand, we've got 3.6% unemployment in America right now, the lowest it's been in decades. People have jobs. We have record high consumer spending. Thanks to the bipartisan infrastructure bill, we are delivering for New Jersey the infrastructure funding that we need to rebuild things and create jobs in our state. But at the same time, inflation is hurting absolutely all of us. And there's nothing more important for the government to be focused on right now than that problem. In the short term, we've made some progress. Gas prices have gone down in the United States for the last 36 days in a row. That's partly because we have been pressing our energy companies hard to reopen refineries that were shut down during the pandemic, to produce oil on the leases, the public leases that they have from the United States government, and we're making some progress there. We are working hard to try to lower costs for the American people across the board. There's good progress being made also in the Senate right now to pass a bill that I have supported and co-sponsored in the House to get the cost of prescription drugs down for Americans by allowing Medicare at long last to negotiate with the drug companies to get the cost of drugs down for seniors and for everybody else. And also, as part of this deal, I hope we're going to be able to preserve the health insurance subsidies that have made Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, much more affordable in the last couple of years. In the longer term, the big thing we need to fix is our supply chain system. I think one of the big lessons of the pandemic is that it is dangerous for the United States to be as dependent as we have been on supply chains that begin in countries that are either hostile to the United States, like China, or countries that are fundamentally unstable. And the most urgent task that we have in fixing our supply chains is dealing with the massive shortage of microchips that our economy is experiencing right now. Microchips are part of everything pretty much everything that we consume. The shortage of microchips is a major reason why the price of cars, new and used cars, has gone up so high. The typical new car has about 700 microchips. If you're buying an EV, it's about 2,000. We used to make them in America. We don't anymore for the most part. Most of the world's microchips come from Taiwan, which China is threatening with invasion. So there's a massive effort to relocate microchip manufacturing out of Taiwan and to expand it everywhere else. And the Europeans, our friends and allies in Europe, are investing billions and billions of dollars to attract microchip manufacturers to go to European countries. So we are in a race against time, and we are moving very quickly in the Congress. Hopefully by next week, we will have passed the CHIPS Act, which will provide about $50 billion in public investment, mostly loans and loan guarantees that are going to get paid back to taxpayers to stimulate the reshoring of manufacturing of microchips in the United States. This will be huge for New Jersey because we're one of the few states that actually has some advanced microchip manufacturing. It'll create jobs for us, and it will fuel the industries of the future so that we can make it in America again. I have helped to write broader, even more ambitious legislation that we still hope to move this year to incentivize bringing home manufacturing of a whole range of other critical technologies and goods, everything from rare earth minerals to battery technology to pharmaceutical ingredients. I'm very worried that something like 100% of our 100% of our antibiotics come from China in a crisis, in a war with China over Taiwan. That is a vulnerability that we cannot afford, and that's something I'm going to continue to work on. Another set of issues, I know a lot of people are worried about what the Supreme Court is doing. Nobody asked for this, certainly not in New Jersey, but it seems like the Supreme Court is repealing the 20th century between Roe versus Wade and the threats to other rights that we thought had been settled decades ago. What we are doing about it for the short term right now is trying to pass legislation in Congress to codify Roe versus Wade so that it's part of the law of the land. That is going to be tough going in the Senate as it is today, but we are not going to rest in our efforts. Last week, or actually this week, we also passed two very important pieces of legislation in the House of Representatives. Number one, to codify the right of every single American to marry who they choose. Again, the Supreme Court guaranteed that, but that Supreme Court decision is now at risk. That was a bipartisan vote in the House of Representatives, and I believe we have the votes in the Senate to get that done this year. Today, we also passed a bill in the House of Representatives to codify the right of every American to use birth control and contraceptions. That's a decision the Supreme Court made in the 1960s. I never thought we'd need to talk about it in America, but apparently we do, because Justice Thomas, in his opinion, repealing Roe versus Wade, said that we also need to revisit the previous Supreme Court opinion that guaranteed the right of every American woman and family to obtain birth control and contraceptive services. So we passed that in the House today, and I hope the Senate will follow suit as well. So those are some of the things that we've been doing. We're also moving our appropriations bills through the House in this week and next week. Those are the bills that fund the United States government every single year, the budget. I've been working very, very hard to try to make sure that we get money that comes directly back to our district for projects that improve people's lives. And this year, I've managed to get 15 specific projects in our budget, in the federal budget, for the district that name specific projects that our communities, that our mayors, that our councils in municipalities that I represent have asked for. Everything from new bridges for Union County to pedestrian street enhancements in Westfield, water service line replacements in Netcong, pedestrian bridges in Scotch Plains and Summit, a new water well in Flemington, a woodland restoration project that will protect Lambertville from flooding, street improvements in Lebanon, a new community pool for the YMCA in Hunterdon County in Flemington, a new water tower in Alpha and Warren County, as well as a new, basically rehabilitating the entire sewer system in Phillipsburg, a new pump station in Bedminster, YMCA renovation in Hillsborough. And I hope you can tell from the excitement in my voice that as much as I love working on big global issues and national issues, nothing thrills me more than being able to deliver stuff for our local communities. New Jersey has gotten the short end of the stick for the last few decades in the federal budget. We are working to turn that around, and I think we're being successful. So with that, would love to turn it over to all of you for any questions and thoughts you might have, and we'll take the rest of the time trying to answer them as best as I can. Thanks.
Thank you again, Congressman. Appreciate the updates. And folks, if you'd like to be kept updated by email from the Congressman's office, you can do that by pressing 7 here on your phone, speaking to an operator and giving them your best email address so we can keep you updated better moving forward. We've got lots of great questions in line already, and we'll spend the next 45 minutes of this 1-hour forum taking them on one at a time. Let's go to Joe in Basking Ridge first. Joe, you're live with Congressman Malinowski. Go ahead.
Hey, Congressman. Just wanted to get your thoughts real quick on Nancy Pelosi's husband, Paul. Looks like he made a multi-million-dollar investment in a computer chip company right before a vote on manufacturing computer chips. And just wanted to get your take on kind of the ethics and behind that vote.
Yeah, I'm concerned about that. Again, I don't. It's not for me to judge whether that's a coincidence or something more than that. But I will tell you that I strongly believe that members of Congress should not be buying and selling stocks while they're in Congress. I am a co-sponsor of legislation that would prohibit that going forward. And I've tried to set a good example myself by putting my retirement savings in a blind trust so that I don't know what I'm invested in. I think every member of Congress who has investments, including the Speaker, including the Speaker's spouse, our spouses in general, should follow that rule. There shouldn't even be the appearance of a conflict of interest, and I can understand why there's an appearance of a conflict of interest in this case. Thanks for that question.
Appreciate it. Yeah, thanks, Joe. Let's go to Ranjit in Skillman up next here. Ranjit, thank you for being with us. You're live with Congressman Malinowski. Go ahead.
Hi, Congressman. I have a quick question, and I think you touched upon that in the very beginning of your talk. What are you going to be doing, or what are the Democrats going to be doing to bridge the divide between the Dems and the Republicans in the country today? As an immigrant to this country, I just see there's more acrimony between the two parties than ever before. I don't see much of cohesion in the country going forward. That's my concern.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I obviously share it. I'm an immigrant to this country, too. I love our democracy. I want it to continue to thrive. Democracy means we can disagree. That's fine. In fact, disagreement can be healthy and constructive. But I want us to disagree by seriously and respectfully debating the issues of the day, not by encouraging the people of the United States to hate our neighbors because of politics. That's what I think all are fed up with right now. What I'm trying to do is find common ground where I can. I'm a member of the Bipartisan Problem Solvers Caucus in the House of Representatives. That's the only functioning bipartisan group that we have. We helped write the bipartisan infrastructure bill, which I think is doing so much good for the country and for New Jersey. I've also been working on legislation to address one of the root causes of our division, at least in my opinion, one of the root causes, and that is social media. We get almost all of our news and information today, all of us, filtered by social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, and these big companies, these big social media companies, design their networks so that we all get individually tailored news, individually tailored information, and they select the news and information that we see based on what's going to rile up our emotions, make us angry at each other, make us fearful of each other, because it turns out those emotions are what keep us glued to those platforms, addicted to those platforms for the longest period of time. And so they make more money by making us more angry. And so I've sponsored legislation in Congress that would expose them to legal liability for the ways in which they recommend and amplify information to the American people. I don't think January 6th would have happened if not for Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and all these platforms that were feeding these conspiracy theories and giving people more and more and more and more of the hateful content that made them believe that the violence they were doing that day was actually something normal, something that most Americans would support. So I'm trying to set a good example in my own conduct, working with the other side where I can, trying to stand up to extremism and hatred where I see it, but also going after one of the what I think is the root causes of the problem. Thanks so much for asking.
Thank you again, Congressman. I appreciate you, Ranjit. Thank you for being a part of our forum. We'll go to our next question right away from David in Westfield. David, welcome to the forum. Go ahead, please.
Thanks, Congressman. So President Biden has already said he's in. He's running for another term for re-election. There's no doubt about that. So my question would be, are you going to endorse him for another term for president, and are you going to invite him here to the 7th District to come campaign for you?
I'm not going to make any decisions about endorsing a presidential candidate until our midterm elections are over. I'm running for re-election. I'm spending every minute and hour and day that I have talking to the voters of the 7th District about what I've been doing and what I would do and can do if I'm reelected. Once this election is over, I'm sure both the Democrats and Republicans are going to turn their attention to who their respective nominees for president in 2024 should be. I'm going to look for a candidate who helped me deliver for New Jersey, just as I did in 2020. I'm going to look for a candidate whose values are consistent with the values of the people of New Jersey, somebody who's going to help us fight inflation rather than ban abortion, somebody who's going to support Zelensky, not Putin, somebody who's going to defend the democracy of this country against the extremism that threatens it, somebody who's going to continue the progress that we've made at creating jobs by funding infrastructure, somebody who's going to look for practical solutions to problems rather than sowing division and hatred. So those are going to be my criteria, and when the time comes to make that decision, I'll consult with voters in the district, and we'll make it together. Thank you so much.
Thanks again, Congressman. Appreciate that answer. Thanks to David. Let's go to our next one from Joyce, who's asked me to read her question from Westfield. She says, in light of our environmental state, will New Jersey help people buy solar panels? Again, that's from Joyce in Westfield, Congressman.
Well, thanks, Joyce. I think America has an urgent need, but also a tremendous opportunity when it comes to clean energy. The need, I think, should be apparent to everybody in New Jersey because we understand that climate change is real. It's here. It's not some scientific paper that gets debated in the United Nations. It's 5 feet of water in your basement. Many of us personally experienced that during Hurricane Ida. We're experiencing a massive heat wave right now. We know that these weather patterns, these extreme weather patterns are not normal, and we know that they're going to get worse if we don't do something. But there's also an extraordinary opportunity here for the United States to lead the world to clean energy. The whole world is going to be buying the technologies that are necessary for us to make this transition away from fossil fuels. I want America to lead that transition. I want our companies, I want our workers to make the technologies and the products that the rest of the world will buy. I don't want China to lead the world in that transition. And that means we have to make the upfront investments that will make America the arsenal of clean energy. And one way we can do that is through tax incentives for people who are purchasing things like solar panels and heat pumps for their homes that are more efficient and that employ cleaner energy, electric vehicles, making them more affordable for Americans who are struggling with gas prices right now. This is something I voted for repeatedly in the House of Representatives. I hope the Senate, if not this one, then the next one we elect this November, will follow suit, both to protect us from weather that kills us, but also to seize this once-in-a-lifetime economic opportunity for America to lead. Thanks so much.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Appreciate that answer as well, Congressman. Let's get, this is a question we've gotten from quite a few folks, but we'll give Joyce the opportunity to be the one that asks it. Joyce from Asbury, you are live on the line with the Congressman. What's your question?
Hello, Congressman. I am hoping that you and the other members of Congress, and especially the Senate, don't cave in any further to the NRA. I'm very much concerned about gun control laws. I recognize that there are a great number of people with mental health problems who need much better care than we're currently giving them. But also we need to keep guns off the street and out of the hands of criminals and people who are unstable. I know New Jersey has very strict rules, but we need federal control over the weapons in this country. There is no need for an AK-47 to kill a deer.
Thanks so much for that question. And look, I've often said I'm pro Second Amendment. I'm against the NRA and the gun industry and the gun lobby. They've done so much damage in our country over the last 20 or 30 years, harm that we are seeing in the headlines all too frequently. We're the only country in the world, the only advanced country in the world, where parents, when they drop their kids off at school, have to worry whether their kids are going to be next. And I cannot stand that. And I feel like we have no higher obligation in Washington than to protect kids. We did, thanks to all of you, thanks to your pressure and your activism, we did pass several weeks ago the first gun violence prevention bill that Congress has managed to pass in several decades. It was a bipartisan bill, the product of a lot of difficult negotiations. It wasn't everything that I might have wanted, but it does represent an important step forward. One of the most horrible recent mass shootings that we all followed, the attack on the 4th of July parade in Illinois, probably would not have happened had that legislation been in place in the years before, because one of the provisions in that legislation would have resulted in the police being notified when that young man who committed that mass shooting purchased his AR-15 rifle, and the police already had a lot on that kid and probably would have, had they known about the purchase of that weapon, they probably would have exercised their authority with a court order to confiscate that gun. We are moving in the House right now an assault weapons ban that would basically recreate the assault weapons ban that we had, that was bipartisan, supported by Ronald Reagan in 1994, that we had for 10 years, and that did reduce the rate of mass shootings in this country. I don't believe the police should be outgunned by criminals. I want civilians protected. I want police to be in a position to be able to stop these things, and so I will absolutely support that. We've demonstrated in New Jersey, as you mentioned, we have strong gun violence prevention laws here, and we've demonstrated that they work because we also have one of the lowest rates of gun fatalities in the country. We've got mental health problems. We've got crime. We've got poverty. We're densely populated, and yet we have one of the lowest rates of gun violence fatalities in America because we have these sensible laws. I'll do all I can to try to promote them nationally as well. Thanks for the question.
Appreciate you again, Congressman. Excellent question so far. Thanks so much, folks. I'm going to get Maria's question in here, and then I'll remind you, for those of you who may have joined a little late, about how to sign up for the e-newsletter, how to get casework assistance from the Congressman's office, and how to follow him on social media. We'll do that next. First, we've got this one from Maria in New Providence, who's asked me to read it. She asked, should we be concerned about this new variant of COVID that's going around? I run a small business and was almost ruined when everything was shut down back in 2020. Should I be bracing myself for something of that nature again? And Congressman, that's Maria in New Providence.
Well, thank you, Maria. We do not want to go back to 2020. And we don't have to go back to 2020 because we have something right now that we didn't have then. We have incredibly effective, safe vaccines that we have through a combination of private sector excellence and genius and massive government investment. If you are vaccinated and boosted, you can still get this new variant because it's incredibly contagious. President Biden just got it. You know, he's double vaxxed and double boosted. But it's almost certainly not going to kill you or result in hospitalization. I had it. It was a sore throat. I think most people experience this very, very mildly so long as they take the precautions that this massive investment we've made enables them to take. So as long as we're smart and responsible, and I think most people in New Jersey are smart and responsible about this, I'm not hugely worried about a return to the shutdowns of 2020. I do think we have to take seriously the fact that infectious diseases are going to remain a threat. Global pandemics are going to remain a threat. It's not just this variant of COVID. It could be something else next time. And this is one reason why our global leadership in public health is so important. And so even as I have focused on trying to make sure that we provide vaccines and treatments to every single American who's willing to take them, I've also been championing America's global leadership in encouraging vaccination and better public health around the world, because viruses don't care about borders. They don't need visas. They don't need passports. They're going to continue to traverse the world, and I'd much rather fight this stuff in Africa and in Asia than have to fight it in New Jersey ever again. Thanks so much.
Really appreciate all the questions, folks. Let's take a moment here to remind you how to get help from the Congressman's office if you need it. First off, if you want to be kept updated via email by Representative Malinowski's office, you can do that by pressing 7 during our live forum here, speaking to an operator and giving them your best email address. We'll sign you up for the e-newsletter that way. Or you can visit malinowski.house.gov/contact/newsletter-subscribe. So again, malinowski.house.gov/contact/newsletter-subscribe, or during this live forum, you can press 7 and give your email to an operator to sign up for the Congressman's e-newsletter. Next up, we can assist with accessing public benefits such as Social Security and Medicare, passports and visas, immigration and naturalization services, veterans benefits, or in resolving issues with federal agencies like the IRS and FEMA, as well as much more. If you need assistance from the Congressman's office, please visit malinowski.house.gov/casework. Again, that's malinowski.house.gov/casework if you need assistance from the Congressman's office on any of those issues or anything else. And finally, if you'd like to follow the Congressman on social media, you can follow Congressman Malinowski on Facebook at Rep. Malinowski and on Twitter at Rep. Malinowski, or you can follow him on Instagram at Rep. Tom Malinowski, or you can subscribe to his YouTube channel, Representative Tom Malinowski. All right, let's get back to Q&A. We've got 28 minutes left. We're going to see how many questions we can take in that time, and we've got Josh in Delaware Township up next. Josh, thanks for waiting. You're live with Congressman Malinowski. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Tom, I had the pleasure to meet you in a very unpleasurable circumstance. I was one of the people in Hunterdon County that lost my home during Hurricane Ida, if you remember. I am still in limbo. FEMA was not all that helpful navigating it, and the federal flood insurance policy I had basically was a dud, and I was assigned a assessor that really just was completely unfair, and I'm trying to deal with that on my own as well. But there are several grants that I've applied to, some through FEMA, with Hunterdon County put in a grant for a buyout on the properties that were most affected within the county. I know Somerset put in for the same grant, and I'm just curious to know what your office is doing to fight for New Jersey, because right now I'm drowning, and I've been drowning for 11 months, and I just want to stop. So I just need some help, and hoping you can help.
Hey, Josh, I do remember. And let me just ask you, have you been in touch with our office on your specific situation recently?
No, not recently. To be completely honest, you had assigned someone to me, and I was texting with them, and then the last 7-8 texts I sent, there was never a response, so I just gave up.
Okay, that's weird, and we will fix that if that's the case. So we'll connect with you after this call. We've handled a lot of cases with FEMA, some successfully, some with greater frustration over the last several months. I did help get the emergency funding bill through that paid for a lot of this stuff, but it wasn't enough. I don't think anybody got fully what they needed to recover. So I'm very happy to work with you to try to make sure that we can take advantage of whatever help may be out there, including those buyout programs, which I think for a lot of people in your situation are probably the only sensible solution. It's not good for the recipient of the aid or for taxpayers to just be, fixing the same house over and over and over again, knowing that these floods, unfortunately, are going to be a fact of life for us for some time. So I'm so sorry that you're going through this. We'll do our best to help. Thanks.
Yeah, and Josh, I'm just making sure here. we've got your phone number and we've got your question and the situation that you're in. So the Congressman's office will follow up with you in the next few days here and make sure you get taken care of. Okay.
I greatly appreciate it. I'm a longtime supporter, and I just need some help, guys. So I appreciate it.
Thanks, Josh.
Understood.
We'll get on it.
Thank you, Josh. All right, let's get to our next one. We've got this one coming live from Laura in Bridgewater. Laura, it looks like you've got a few questions here. We've got a lot of folks waiting, though. Can you just pick the one question that's most important to you and take that one to the Congressman here?
The abortion question.
Got it. Okay, so it looks like you're asking, you think the Supreme Court needs to consider the life of the mother when her life is at risk. Is that about right?
Especially in a circumstance where there is no life to save. I've experienced it twice and died in both cases.
I got it.
Okay,
I got
thank
the
you
question.
so much.
Yeah. Look, so this is one reason why I think that decision that the Supreme Court made and many of the laws that are being passed across the country in response are just a travesty. I think a lot of people out there, a lot of politicians out there who've been talking about this irresponsibly just don't understand what a lot of women and families go through. What you're referring to, I believe, if I understand your question correctly, is an ectopic pregnancy in which a family is expecting a child, wants a child, but is informed that the child is not going to be born alive, and that in fact it is the type of pregnancy that threatens the life of the mother if it is not ended. And in a lot of the states now that are criminalizing abortion, there's no exception for cases like that. So what you are talking about in those situations is a government-mandated pregnancy that will kill the mother and not save the child. Some of these states are even talking about legislation that would prohibit a woman in that situation from leaving the state, from crossing state lines to get life-saving care in another state. Again, I can't believe we're even talking about this in America right now, but this is the reality. And already in a number of these states, doctors have been hesitating to perform the procedure because they're worried they could be jailed. They could be treated as criminals if this happens. And so this is why it's so incredibly important, since we cannot count on the Supreme Court anymore, for the Congress of the United States to enshrine the basic protections of Roe versus Wade into law for the country as a whole. And if we can't do that in this Congress, because the Senate is what it is, and I don't think we have 60 votes in the Senate, most of the Republicans won't do it there, I would be in favor in the interim, as an interim measure of passing protections for situations where the life of the mother is at risk, and then win the larger battle next year with a Congress that I hope is slightly more respectful of women's human rights in this country. Thanks so much for the question.
Yep, appreciate that one as well. Thanks so much, folks. We've got about 20 minutes left. A quick reminder, if you have a late question to submit, press 0. If you'd like to get email updates, press 7. We're going to go to Will in Highbridge next. Hey, Will. Thanks for joining us. Go ahead, please.
Hi. Good evening, everybody. Hi, Congressman Malinowski. Really rooting for you in November. Just wanted to see what the status is. When Biden became president, he said there would be a study on the Supreme Court expansion, potentially. At one point, this was connected to the number of courts of appeals, which at this point should be 13, not 9. Just curious where that stands. Thank you.
Thanks so much for your question. And look, I get why people are asking about that, why you and others would be asking about that after some of these recent Supreme Court decisions. Support for the Supreme Court, confidence in the Supreme Court is at an all-time low in our country right now. That's bad for our democracy. We need a Supreme Court that is trusted by people on both sides of the political divide so that we accept these decisions as final and legitimate. At the same time, I personally have been reluctant to endorse proposals to blow up the court, to expand it, to fundamentally change it. I fear that could begin an endless cycle of court expansions. You know, you could have a Democratic Congress that expands it when we don't like a decision, then a Republican Congress expands it when they don't like a decision, and before long the Supreme Court would look like the House of Representatives. I would also say to you that if the concern is about a particular decision like the repeal of Roe versus Wade, if we had the votes in Congress to expand the Supreme Court, we would easily have the votes in Congress to enshrine Roe v. Wade in the law of the land, to fix it by legislation. That is a much easier, less controversial, less destabilizing way of solving the problems that the Supreme Court is creating right now. And so my focus has been on passing the simple legislation that would render the Supreme Court's recent decisions essentially meaningless.
Thanks
so much.
Appreciate that question from Will. Let's get this one in here. So this one's coming from Scott in Summit, but it's a question we're getting from a lot of callers, so I'll just read it for you, Scott. What things will Congress be doing to keep gas prices going down? And that's from Scott and quite a few others here, Congressman.
Well, thanks, Scott, and I can imagine why everybody is wondering about this. All of us are. So we've made a little progress. As I mentioned, gas prices have gone down every day for the last month, but it's not enough. So what we need is, number one, get more refineries online. A lot of people focus on oil production. Actually, we're producing as much oil today in America as we were in the several years before the pandemic. The bigger problem is that the major oil and gas companies shut down production at a lot of gasoline refineries across the country. So we have been pushing and prodding them to do that and having, I think, some success. We do need to get production even further up. In the United States, it is far too easy, I think, for the oil companies to sit on the leases that we give them, the land that we give them to drill for oil. They can sit on those leases for up to 14, 15 years without producing a drop of oil. I think they need to use them or lose them. I think they need to pay more for those leases. So again, encouraging more rapid production in the United States. Around the world, the only two countries that have the capacity to rapidly increase production to help us with supply are Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. The president was just in Saudi Arabia. I'm a bit skeptical of his diplomacy there. I think he should be a lot tougher on Saudi Arabia than he has been, but I hope I'm wrong and that his approach will work and that we will get the Saudis and the Emirates to turn up the dial and produce more. That will help in replacing the Russian oil that has been lost from international markets by, I think, our correct decision to ban Russian oil after the invasion of Ukraine. We've also been focusing on price gouging. There is, I get a little suspicious when the price of oil goes down by $30 or $40 a barrel, but the price of gas does not follow. I think there is some reason to believe that some companies in the oil and gas industry are enjoying these high prices and the high profits that go with them. They're in the business of making money. We're in the business of urging them to act in the public interest, and I'm going to continue to do that. Finally, I have supported imposing a windfall tax on the profits that oil companies are making to fund rebates for American oil and gas consumers. I don't think it's fair to ask working and middle-class Americans to bear the entire burden of the war in Ukraine, the entire economic burden that has followed the banning of Russian oil. I think these companies that are making record profits should share in that burden as well. So those are some of the things that we've already done, some things that I would propose doing. And while we've made some progress, I totally agree we need to make a lot more. Thanks so much.
Thank you to Scott and the others who are asking about gas prices. We've got 15 minutes left. Let's keep on trucking, see how many more we can fit in. Barbara in Union, you're live.
Hello.
Thanks for waiting.
Oh, thank you. Everybody's been asking really great questions. However, I know about the abortion. I don't even want to go into that. However, what about gun control? There are little munchkins. There are little kids that are afraid to go to school. What are we going to do about gun control? Only one person said that, and I got my panties in a wad about it.
Thank you so much, Barbara. And we did get one good question on this. And I'm happy to be a broken record about it because I feel as strongly as you do. We've got good gun laws in New Jersey. They work. They do protect our kids better than in most states. We've got one of the lowest rates of gun violence fatalities in America, in New Jersey, because we have good gun laws. It is unconscionable that Congress has resisted passing similarly strong laws for the country as a whole. The good news is, in the last month, we got the first gun violence prevention bill passed in the Congress in decades, focusing particularly on young purchasers of guns, enhancing background checks for anyone between the ages of 18 and 21 trying to buy a gun in America, closing the boyfriend loophole so that domestic partners, boyfriends who have been convicted of abusing, stalking their partners are banned from buying guns under the background check system, investing more in mental health, which is not the only cause of the problem, but I am for anything that helps mental health in America. So that was something I was proud to support. So it was a start. We're also moving, as I mentioned, an assault weapons ban through the House of Representatives right now. I'm going to be introducing legislation soon. I didn't mention this before, to target the way in which guns are marketed in America. I don't think they should be marketed to kids. I don't think that they should be marketed in ways that encourages people to use them in inappropriate ways. And so we're going to try to empower the federal government to better regulate how this industry markets weapons, again, particularly to young people. So we're doing something. We need to do a whole lot more, and I'm 100% dedicated to that. Thanks for the question.
Yeah, very much appreciate you, Barbara. Thanks for being a part of our call. And a reminder here, folks, that if you wanted to get email updates from the Congressman's office, press 7 here. We've got 12 minutes left on the call. This is our last call for email updates on this forum. So 7 if you want to give your email address to one of our operators so that we can keep you updated moving forward. Otherwise, you can always, after the call, go to the Congressman's website, and we'll remind you where you can find that information before we get to the end. Let's get to our next question coming from Farhad in Bridgewater. I'm going to read the rest of these just to save time and get through as many as we can. Farhad's asking, what else can we do for Ukraine? Congressman, can you take that on for us?
Well, thanks. We did enough for Ukraine in the early days of the war to help Ukraine survive. At this point, most of the military experts initially predicted that Russia would have won the war, that would have expelled the Ukrainian government, imprisoned or killed President Zelensky, took over the whole country. And with their courage and the help that we provided and our allies provided, we prevented that and helped the Ukrainians actually retake a lot of the territory that Russia captured in the early days of the war. But now is a very difficult time. There's been a stalemate in eastern Ukraine. Every single day, innocent Ukrainians are killed by Russian artillery. and missile strikes. And so what we need to do, what we have been trying to do and what we need to do more of, is to get the weapons into Ukrainian hands that will help the Ukrainian military defend themselves against those attacks and retake more of the territory that Russia captured. Most recently, the Biden administration finally, and we encouraged this in Congress, delivered to Ukraine the so-called HIMARS system. These are these very advanced multiple launch rocket systems that can be precisely targeted deep behind the Russian front line. These have had, I think, a very devastating effect on Russia's morale and ability to fight. They need more of these weapons in addition to simply more of what we have already been providing. At the same time, we have to keep on increasing the strength of our sanctions, of our economic sanctions against Russia. And what I have been leading is in getting legislation passed through the House, and we did this actually, again, 2 weeks ago, to enable the Biden administration, the U.S. government, not just to block, not just to freeze the assets of these Russian oligarchs that have been supporting the Putin regime, their yachts and their private planes and their villas all over the world, but to actually seize those assets and to sell them and to use the proceeds to help Ukraine rebuild. I strongly believe that we should be using Putin's money to rebuild the country that he is destroying. The Biden administration was a bit skeptical of that idea at first, but we've persuaded them. They've embraced it now, and we're passing legislation to give them legal authority to do that. That's something I've been very proud to lead on in the last few weeks. Thanks again so much.
Appreciate you again, Congressman. Thanks to Farhad for that last question. Let's get this one in here from Mary in Branchburg, who asks, do you have a committee or recommendation to make schools safer and implement any measures to prevent terrorist attacks on schools, something within the state? That's from Mary in Branchburg.
Yeah, thanks, Mary. So the gun violence prevention bill that I mentioned before also provides a lot more money for school safety. That's money that will be coming down from the federal government to school districts across the country to implement whatever school safety measures they think are best. And I think that needs to be driven by communities, by school leaders, by parents, local police departments, working together to try to determine what is the best solution for our kids. I want to get the guns under control. I want to do more for mental health, but in the meantime, obviously, we got to make sure that we're doing everything we reasonably can to keep our kids safe. So that's what we're doing. Thanks so much.
Thank you again. And folks, we are just about out of time. I want to leave a few minutes at the end of our forum here to make sure the Congressman has some time to give some closing thoughts. But I did want to mention Josh in Delaware Township. We've got you marked for some follow-up from the Congressman's office, as we mentioned earlier. Also, Lindari in Somerset. You brought an issue up. You wanted a personal callback, not appropriate for this public forum, so we'll follow up with you as well. For anybody else who needs assistance with casework, I'll remind you again that we can assist with accessing public benefits such as Social Security and Medicare, passports and visas, immigration and naturalization services, veterans benefits, or in resolving issues with federal agencies like the IRS or FEMA, as well as much more. So if you would like to request assistance from Representative Malinowski's office, you can visit malinowski.house.gov/casework. And again, you can also sign up for his e-newsletter on the website at malinowski.house.gov/contact/newsletter-subscribe. And you can follow him on social media, if you don't already, on Facebook at Rep Malinowski, on Twitter at Rep Malinowski, and on Instagram at Rep Tom Malinowski, or you can subscribe to his YouTube feed, Rep Tom Malinowski. And with that, Congressman, we've got a few minutes left if you have any closing thoughts for our listeners still on the line.
Well, thanks so much to everybody who participated. I think we covered a lot of important issues today. I will just close by saying that whatever our politics, whatever our points of view, I think this kind of conversation between elected representatives and the people we represent is absolutely essential for our democracy to work, particularly in the 7th District. I think it's something that voters rightly expect, and anybody who represents this district should be willing to sit down again and again and again with constituents to take their questions and their thoughts and their criticisms. I've tried to do that from the beginning of my first term in 2018. We've done over 100 of these, some in this telephone format, many others live, and I've got a bunch of live ones coming up in the coming weeks as well. Your questions, as I always say, your questions become my priorities in Washington, and so please keep them coming. I hope you join the next one of these that we do, or that you visit one of the local town halls or Congress in Your Corner events that we do as often as we can. Thanks so much for the great questions, and look forward to our next opportunity to meet. Bye-bye.